Papadimoulis. I will speak also in Greek, so use your headphones.
Yesterday, the Commission published its forecasts for the economies of all the member states of the European Union. As far as Greece is concerned, statistics demonstrate that after dreadful sacrifices on behalf of the Greek people, this time we actually have not only achieved the objectives that had been agreed upon, but the results far exceeded expectations. The agreement between the creditors of Greece and the Greek government provided for a surplus, a primary surplus for 2016 of 0.5%. The actual result published by the Commission was 2%. A decline of 0.3% was forecast, but we in fact had a positive growth of 0.3% after many, many years. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has been off the mark all the time because they were saying 0.5% recession. And the forecasts for the coming years are a growth of 2.7% for 2017 and growth of 3.1% for 2018. Unemployment, which is still the highest in the whole of the European Union, was 27% 2 years ago and is now down to 23%. The Greek people have sacrificed more than any other people of Europe, and they deserve really not to have people torpedo these efforts to bring the country out of unemployment and recession and to set up a social welfare state. And you cannot ignore implementation of the rules and the law of the European Union by which we are bound. And Greece, under the first and second reviews, bailout programmes, has already been obliged to circumvent these rights. It is time to put a stop to this austerity, this one-sided austerity, which is leading nowhere. There's not been any talk about any debt relief, which will not cost a single euro to any European citizen. Greece has abided by its obligations and commitments. It's time for the creditors to do the same. And another question is the following. Do the lenders, and the European ones and the IMF, want to help Greece and the Greek people to find their way out of the recession towards growth? Or do they want to cause instability, to bring down the Tsipras government, which is the only Eurozone left-wing government? That is the question. Mr. Schäuble will have to stop playing around with matches in a gunpowder cellar. It's time for Germany, which needs the support. Mrs. Merkel, for example, she needs our support, the Greek support. It is time for her to actually put words into action. And it is in the interest of Greece, of course, but also of the Eurozone, to avoid regression and instability in this part of the European Union, which are the external borders of that European Union and which has common borders with Turkey, this very unstable country under Mr. Erdogan. The International Monetary Fund must finally accept the Eurostat and the Commission's statistics and figures and stop insisting on assessments and forecasts and estimates that Mr. Dijsselbloem has said were wrong. Mr. Dobrovsky said they're very, very worrying and pessimistic. And Mr. Juncker yesterday said, the Commission's president said, that the Greeks, over the last few years, have made huge changes, brought in huge reforms, more so than any country in the north of Europe. We're not asking for any more than for what has been agreed to be followed and abided by, so that we can get out of this dreadful, vicious circle of austerity and recession, and through growth and debt relief, the country can then find its way towards more favourable rates of growth so that we can bring down the rate of unemployment and Greece can stop being under the supervision of memoranda. Now, in the European Parliament, we have a debate on the agenda on this subject, and I'm glad that the majority of members of this European Parliament will send out a message, a positive message to the Eurogroup and to the Commission and to the Finance Minister in Berlin and to the International Monetary Fund. Thank you very much. I have a question in Greek for Mr. Papadimoulis. Now, I remember back in the past, you had warned of the possibility of the Eurogroup and the IMF really working on the basis of a good scenario where the Eurogroup and its demands could be offset by talks about debt relief or reduction of Greece, or the bad scenario where the Eurogroup will make demands and they will be added to the demands of the IMF. Now, I'm wondering, are we at that stage now, and how can we actually tackle the situation? If the International Monetary Fund wants to help the weak, as its statutes state, then it's not a question of putting pressure on David, but on Goliath. So they have to put pressure on the big countries, and Germany in particular, to bring down the debt, and bring pressure to bear on Berlin to have a lower, a more realistic primary surplus in 2018 at the end of the bailout programme, because all the economists throughout the world consider that it is absolutely impossible for a country, even Germany, to sustain a primary surplus of 3.5 or 6%, as Mr. Schäuble has said, for a 10-year period. And the basic disagreement is between the European lenders and the IMF with regard to debt reduction, the amount of the primary surplus and the duration of that primary surplus after the end of the bailout programme. Now, they're making calculations, but they shouldn't hold the Greek people responsible. They should meet them halfway in a reasonable manner. It's a question of common sense at the end of the day. And in any case, there are limits, socially speaking, to people's patience in Greece and their endurance. And it's at a time when we're trying to get out of this a recession, it's ridiculous to try and remind us of the efforts, of the toils and trials of Sisyphus, pushing the boulder back up the hill again from scratch.
The legal status or the status of the legal fights against CETA, because from what I understand, there's not yet been a formal request by Belgium at the ECJ to clarify the legal issues around CETA. Thank you.
Dat is inderdaad ook mijn informatie.
That's information I have.